Hi, I'm Charlie Pickering. You're about to watch 4 prominent Australians face a news event of our creation. While the scenario is fiction, it is by no means fanciful and it could very soon be fact. Our panel will have to answer the tough questions posed by their new reality. How will they and you handle a future that may already be flying towards us? Let's find out on Tomorrow Tonight. Please welcome our guests tonight, Professor of Ethics at Oxford University, Julian Savulescu, gold medalist at the World Dwarf Games and former President of the Short-Statured People of Australia, Meredith Young, and comedian and star of Orange is the New Brown, Nazeem Hussain. And back for a second week by contractual obligation, ABC political analyst Annabelle Crabb. Now, Julian, you are Professor of Ethics. Does that make you more or less likely to cheat on your taxes?
Well, I guess I know how bad it is to cheat on your taxes, but I don't cheat on my taxes at all. No.
Yeah, you're not going to say that on national television, are you?
I will say that as an ex-tax consultant, the rule of thumb is if in doubt, deduct. So.
Well, we are about to create the news, and let's see how you guys go. We all want to give our kids the best chance in life, and very soon we may be able to tinker with their DNA to do just that. Gene editing is on the brink of allowing parents to design their unborn children, letting them handpick the traits they'll have as adults. But can we be trusted with the blueprint for our own existence?
Are we wise enough to tame ourselves in the presence of this awesome power that previously was only in the hands of nature? Breathe. Almost there.
Adam is a breakthrough in genetic engineering, the world's first designer baby.
His birth was announced today by researchers at MIT.
Adam's genome was constructed using a revolutionary technology called PENSA, which can safely snip entire sections of DNA and replace them at will. Parents can choose characteristics of the mother, the father, or someone else entirely.
Having a baby could soon become like choosing from a menu.
The applications are endless. Everything from curing genetic disease to choosing your child's hair colour, their eye colour.
Biotech stocks are way up. Investors think gene editing is going to be huge.
While the technology doesn't have the green light, advertising has already begun.
Your suit, tailored. Your watch, custom made. Your home, architecturally designed. Excellence is not an accident. Why should your child be any different?
Well, there we have it. Conception by Calvin Klein. So, gene editing is now a reality. Nazeem, we all want to give our kids the best start in life. Yep. Are you going to use PINSA to give your kids a leg up before they're even born?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, if you could.
You did not even hesitate for a second there.
I mean, you know, you get the option of having like a kind kid or a bully kid. You'd go for the bully kid. You know, they want to run the world. You know, why wouldn't you choose the best traits for your kid?
So, what would you pick?
I'd pick the fastest, the smartest, the freaking hard work. They don't need that. I'm Asian. Like, you know, they are.
So, Annabelle, you've got a few cookbooks. Would you like to bake a kid from your own recipe?
No, absolutely not. Like, I'm prepared to take responsibility for a failed pavlova, but I'm not prepared to take responsibility for a failed child. I'd like to mess up my children at length and over a lifetime rather than do it all in a rush, you know, while I'm also trying to decorate a nursery.
Julian, is it ethical to design a baby the way you design a house?
Well, you could start by looking at dispositions to disease. So all of us carry lots of mutations that mean that we're disposed to getting cancer or Parkinson's disease or diabetes or Alzheimer's disease. So you could start by looking at those things which are uncontroversially bad diseases and
But this stuff's talking about hair colour and eye colour and stuff that seems like frippery to me.
But what about like just weird social things? Like, you know, like some people stand too close. Like if you could design that, if you could just edit that out of their genetic code, why wouldn't you?
Is it a moral imperative to remove close talkers from the gene pool?
If you could do something with the mansplainers, I'd be interested. Like,
what, men?
yeah. No, just the splaining. I'll be quiet now.
So, Meredith, do you agree with Julian that it might be ethical for us to start choosing the traits of our kids?
For your children to have the best outcome in life, absolutely. How could you deny that? But what Nazim just put together is his perfect child. I was kind of like, it's almost me on a piece of paper, so...
Except for the skin
colour. When you start to go a bit too far for my liking, but, you know...
Well, it's just the amount that you'd spend on sunscreen is just... it's a waste of money.
While our panel shows some hesitation, some families have already made up their minds. In the wake of the pincer gene editing revolution, designer baby clinics may soon be in every suburban shopping centre, offering a full range of options, including sex selection. One Brisbane family is hoping to take advantage. Jason and Mandy Pearson from Fortitude Valley have 3 boys and desperately want a girl. Meredith, would you deny the Pearsons a baby girl?
Not at all. It's if they feel that passionately about having a baby girl now, then why should we judge them for that?
Yeah, I think that people should be free to select whether they have a child, how many children they have and what kind of children they have. And I think sex is something that matters to people and we shouldn't be creating a kind of state vision of how society should be.
I'm a bit funny about predestining anything about children because I just think, from what I can tell, children are just naturally spring-loaded to just give you a terrible surprise every now and again. And, like, the more you can control, the more you're going to be surprised, I think. So if you just...
What about bedwetting?
I wouldn't do it either, but you had this couple that had 3 boys and they want to have a girl. Who are we to make a judgment about how they should be making their family? I mean, I think let people form their families how they want.
You can't have a baby of a sex that you choose in Australia now, can you?
You can.
The technology exists to do it, or you can have a selective abortion,
You can have a termination of pregnancy for any reason, so you can actually do it, but you can't use IVF to do it deliberately.
You believe in a freedom for people to make their own reproductive decisions, but aren't we at a point where science is now so involved in that? With pincer technology, science is essentially involved. So doesn't there have to be some kind of control?
Yeah, sure, there has to be control. You have to not expose the child to a significant risk of harm, but these people aren't exposing their child to a risk of harm. There's no harm involved in this at all.
So Nazim, you have a boy. Would you choose the sex of your next child to have a girl?
At the moment, he's pretty cute, so I'm happy to stick with the same. Like, so far, he's fine, so I'd go with the same one, the same type of kid. So I'd go boy. I'd go for the same, exactly the same kid. I'd just ask for a replica. No, I don't know. I'd probably want to have a girl next, just to balance it out. I'll probably need to speak to my wife before I make these decisions on national television. But anyway.
Well, our panel might be comfortable choosing the sex of their children, but will they feel differently about their kids' health? The Association of Genetic Professionals has released this ad.
As a mum, you want to give your daughter everything. But there's a part of you hope she never gets. Support Australian gene editing to stop BRCA genes being passed from mother to daughter.
Annabelle, pincer could be used to fix the BRCA gene once and for all. Should we do it?
Yep, out with it. Get it in the sea. I'm finished with BRCA. Happy to lose it from the human race.
That's like a no-brainer, right?
Yeah.
But you're going to say something different.
No, it's a no-brainer.
Okay, all right, it's a no-brainer.
All right, so Annabelle, why are you not in favour of choosing the sex of your child, but you're happy to edit the BRCA gene?
Well, because I think the BRCA gene is pretty cut and dried. Like, it doesn't really bring anything to the world. I mean, it's not something that I really want to give it a go to see if it could turn out to be a good guy in the end. It's not. It isn't. And it doesn't rob the individual of anything by removing it.
Meredith, your niece has cystic fibrosis.
She does.
Would you use pincer to deselect for that?
Without doubt. It's a life-threatening condition and she's aware of that She's a normal little girl, but she has to do her treatments every day. She has a very intensive physiotherapy program, and her lung capacity is not the same as ours. So they say it's very much similar to breathing through a straw. And her life will not be as long as what my life will be. And for those reasons and many others, if I could rip cystic fibrosis out of this world, I would.
You've also lived with the challenges of dwarfism.
I have.
Would you deselect for that?
No.
So how do you draw that line?
Because mine, it's not going to threaten my life in any way, shape or form, other than it's going to maybe throw a few barriers at me and a few challenges at me, which I'll get through and I'll become the person I am because of it. But mine is a physical difference and I get by fine. So I think there's my line.
Just making decisions for your children before they're even really conceived is so interesting, though. Like, if you had a child and you didn't deselect for dwarfism and then that child at age 16 said, Mum, I really wish you had, like, what would you do then?
It could be heartbreaking, but that sort of situation happens now anyway, as people who are carrying the gene, particularly when there's two people with dwarfism having a child together, there's a 75% chance that they're going to have that their child's going to have dwarfism, and so that question would probably come up right now from those children as to why did you have me? And I think all you can do is, as a parent and as their role model, is show them that your life is full. I find my life is more full due to my difference than what it would be if I didn't have this difference.
What do you think about the situation that happens now, say in the United States, where a deaf couple or a couple with short stature or achondroplasia want to have IVF and they want to deliberately select an embryo that is deaf rather than hearing, or that has achondroplasia rather than normal stature? What do you think about those sorts of choices?
I myself don't have children at the moment, but I remember as a teenager saying to my mum, the one thing I want to do is be a mum with a child with achondroplasia, because I feel I'm a good role model and I wanted my child to grow up with a difference in this world, being a positive role model. I don't find anything wrong with the fact that they're choosing the children that they want to choose. There's a big reason as to why a lot of couples living with dwarfism do choose to go down the IVF pathway, because there's a 25% chance that the child won't survive, so I can understand the IVF pathway with those.
What do you think, Julian?
Well, I've actually written defending selecting for dwarfism or for deafness. And I think that you can have a very good life, and just as you said, you're not going to be harming that child that you have. And I think, reproductive freedom says you should be able to select, and in fact that's illegal in Australia, and I think that law should change. It's different to deciding to deafen a child or deciding to stop a child growing who would otherwise be normal statured.
I sort of disagree. You were saying that that who we as parents interfere with our kids before conception, but people do that already. Like, if you're going to have a kid with, like, Donald Trump, your kid's going to become a dick. It's just
But that's a nature-nurture situation.
No, that's genetics.
What about other traits? Say, hay fever. Can we deselect for hay fever?
Yeah.
See, that's funny. OK, so the audience supports deselecting for hay fever. No one there was an outspoken member of the hay fever community. How about bad breath? Would we deselect bad breath?
Yeah.
Chronic flatulence?
Yeah, get rid of that.
I think that's your one, Nazim.
Try being my height on a train.
A revolutionary new gene editing technology called Pincer now lets parents choose the traits of their unborn children. And while our panel and the country grapples with the implications, one country is racing to capitalise on the technology.
China has become the first country to offer a designer baby program.
In a country where most couples only have one child, there's a huge demand for genetic perfection.
So this program is open to foreigners too?
They see there's a huge tourism opportunity.
This is your final call for QF675 to Beijing.
The daily Qantas flight to Beijing is being nicknamed the Baby Capsule. Thousands of young Aussies travel to China to have a bespoke baby.
We can't afford a house, so why not invest in our baby?
More manufacturing going overseas. Australian babies should be made in Australia. 政府今日宣布，要鼓励中国国民使用拼色科技来挑选最优越的道德意义和性格品质。在官方视频中，政府提出，准父母现在可以选择孩子性格的各个方面，从外向的到慷慨的。总理声称，这个计划只会让我们伟大的国家更加强大。
It is certainly a bold move from the Chinese, using a panda as a mascot for successful conception. So the Chinese are using pincer to choose personality traits. Let's go shopping. Meredith, would you rather be smart or funny?
Oh, funny by far.
Really?
Yeah.
So Nazim, looks or brains? What do you choose?
Looks.
You two should breed, I think.
Julian, if we have the opportunity to make our kids more moral, more generous, do we have an obligation to do that?
Well, if you look at the extreme end, psychopathy or callous unemotional personality, this is a devastating condition, and there are attempted treatments of it. I think when you get to extreme personality disorders, that's something that we should seriously look at treating, and gene editing is just another form of treatment. It's a treatment at the most basic level. You've got to remember that disease is a statistical definition. So we say that somebody has a diagnosis of psychopathy, which is a psychiatric disorder, once they're outside of the normal range. But you're just drawing a line there. And, parents will maybe want to draw the line in a different place to how doctors draw the line. And again, this is something that I think people should be able to make choices about. If I found out that my child was going to become a psychopath, that would be something I'd have to seriously consider.
Annabelle, if we remove psychopaths from the gene pool, who will be our CEOs?
Well, I guess if that happened, or when that happens, eventually corporations are going to have to take the unfortunate step of just employing women to do those jobs.
Okay.
Actually, I think it's going to make a pretty boring world, Pincer. I'm against it now. Because, if you think about it, stubbornness is bad, but it's also really good. And same with aggression to a degree. Like Nelson Mandela, he was militant. Gandhi was pretty stubborn. Malcolm X, Martin Luther King, they all.
Well, Meredith's a gold medal-winning
aggressively...
athlete. You need a bit of aggression there, don't you?
It's the whole nature versus nurture. Like, how much of it do we develop due to our upbringing and due to our life circumstances around us? Like, people, I would assume, don't always carry the psychopathic gene. They'd often develop into being a psychopath without actually having the genes.
I think that's true. Most of these sorts of traits are 50% genetic, 50% environmental, social. So you're never going to guarantee an outcome either way with the best social environment or the best genes. But, as a parent, all you can do is try to give your child what you think is the best start in life. And nature doesn't give out equal hands. It creates huge natural inequality. And, it's a shame that we can't live, substantially better lives because we're not prepared to raise the safety net.
I think the only comfort of the poor is laughing at rich people who are thick. And I think that this would do away with that.
Well, just when you thought this story couldn't get more controversial, a Sri Lankan-Australian couple from Carrum Downs in Melbourne are going to China to have a blonde, white, blue-eyed baby. The De Silvas want a Caucasian-looking child so it doesn't suffer the discrimination its parents went through. Nazim, you're a Sri Lankan-Australian.
Yeah.
Should the De Silvas be able to go and select a white baby?
They should let their kid grow up brown and then profit from the discrimination that he faces as a...
So you think all Sri Lankan children should grow up to have sketch shows?
Actually, you know what? No, I don't want any competition. But
but so there is a question there, like, if Pincer can remove prejudice by removing difference, is that any path to take?
Maybe we just legislate globally that everyone needs to be one colour. We agree on that. So we just have a universal vote, and then that's the colour that everyone has to... Then there's no racism. Then there's just sexism, homophobia, transphobia, ableism.
Annabelle, what about a red-headed couple who are more likely to get skin cancer? Should they be allowed to select a dark-skinned child more immune to the sun?
I just don't think There is no way that you can eliminate risk factors from the life of an unborn child. And it really worries me, this idea that once you get the idea that through Pincer you can protect your baby or get some sort of insurance package against discomfort or pain or misery. I mean, there are plenty of smart people, brilliant people who are miserable. There are plenty of physically able people who are miserable. You can't edit out the human experience. And I just think the minute you think you can, you're just slipping down some insane slope to oblivion, Charlie. Oblivion.
Well, the rest of the world is embracing new gene editing technology that allows parents to create their perfect baby. Until now, Australia has been cautious, but I reckon all bets are off when it comes to sport.
A landmark report from pressure group God's Children has accused 18 countries, including the UK, of running genetic engineering programs to breed professional athletes.
English sports officials have denied the allegations. Australia was not mentioned in the report.
Finally, some cheating we're not involved in.
Within this facility in northern England, scientists are allegedly selecting genes for height, bone density, muscle mass and even limb lengths to create the perfect basketballers, swimmers and even jockeys.
Despite overwhelming evidence, the Trump administration continues to deny that they are indeed creating new babies tailored to win Olympic gold.
이제 머지않은 가까운 미래에 우리 북조선의 모든 어린아이들이 위대한 지도자 동지와 같이 훌륭한 육체를 가지게 될 것입니다.
At this point in time, Australia still breeds its super athletes the old-fashioned way at the Olympic Village after the closing ceremony. Meredith, if Australia doesn't start breeding some super athletes, we're going to get our butts kicked. Is it time to do it?
Not at all. We're amazing athletes. We're an amazing athletic
We were
country.
until now. Yeah. Now with Pincer, we are behind the rest of the world.
Could you not... I think there would be a ban on any athlete entering the Olympic Games who had any manipulation done at birth. It'd be like the drug thing. Drug cheats out.
And that's always...
had their genes
regulating that's always worked well.
So, Julian, do you think it is the same? Editing genes is like performance-enhancing drugs?
Yeah, I mean, I'm on record for defending physiological doses of performance-enhancing drugs because it works within normal physiology. So the levels of growth hormone, testosterone, EPO that athletes are taking at the moment are within the normal range. What you're talking about here is pushing humans outside of the normal range.
It's like super breeding poodles that can barely walk at Crufts and stuff like that.
So, you know, I think that before Australia goes down this route, it ought to watch what happens to the natural experiments to these people. It may well be that their bones collapse or something during competition.
This is the only part of the scenario with Pincer where I'm absolutely in favour of whatever you can do. I just want to see those people. I want people with fin hands. Yep. I want people with spring feet. I want people... I'm sorry, I know that it's totally hypocritical, but I really want to see that Olympics.
There's a big difference between you choosing to do it yourself and elongating your legs with some magical treatment versus you doing it to your child.
Yeah, but when your child's born, it's already born with these superhuman abilities. Which child is going to complain about running faster than Usain Bolt? Who's going to complain about having gills?
But they'll...
Nazim, if you could give your kid a better chance to be captain of the Australian cricket team, would you do it?
Yep. I've always wanted to be a dad of a sports star. So.
That is the most honest thing said on this panel tonight, ladies and gentlemen. Julian, how would you feel if one of your unimproved children ran onto a footy field against a team of enormous genetically engineered monsters?
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be an arms race with sporting talent where, you know, if you've got 6 feet long legs and you're in the high jump, there's going to be somebody with 7 feet long legs. And that's why I think for those kinds of things, you're not aiming at something that's going to improve the child's well-being. And that's where you do need regulation. So I think that you've got to draw a line between the things that are just going to create an unavoidable arms race and things that are going to improve people's lives, like the BRCA gene or, you know, giving your child better memory or more resistance to ageing. You know, that's what I'd want at this at my age.
That's pretty good. So what? You can have a gene where you live forever?
Well, there's a thing called the Methuselah mouse that lives twice as long as a normal mouse. So
what does it eat? Like, is that a supplement or something?
No. It's been gene edited. So you could actually increase human longevity and delay ageing, and that's something I think that we should give children. And I'd want for myself.
It sounds so tiring, though.
Yeah, but is it like a do we have like a death gene that you could just delete? Is there something in our genetic code that means you die at some point?
Well, the estimate is the maximum human lifespan is about 1,200 years. So if you aged at the kind of age a 10-year-old is aging, you could potentially live 1,200 years. I don't know complete immortality, but you could certainly live much longer than we do now.
We're really going to need to review our aged care policy, I think, before we step into this.
There's one group who has always tried to slow the ageing process. Celebrities have started licensing their DNA to clinics who plan to offer it to patients if gene editing is made legal. One clinic has already bought the rights to Angelina Jolie's lips and Chris Hemsworth's biceps. Sadly, Steve Buscemi's eyes are not selling well. So, Nazim, which celebrity body part would you like to take?
I want your lips.
Feelings mutual, buddy. Feelings mutual. How about you, Meredith?
Do you want anything from me?
You got the best teeth on the planet.
Get a room, people.
Meredith, what celebrity body part would you like?
Someone's nose. I have the classic achondroplasic nose, the ski jump.
That's a great nose. In Sri Lanka, we call that a chopper nose, which is what I have as well. It's like I've got a chopper. We've got chopper noses.
Oh, we've got so many things in common.
Yeah. keep that nose. You got to keep.
If you rubbed noses, would it be a chopper chop?
Annabelle, how many pieces of a Kardashian in your child does it take before they're actually just a Kardashian?
I think the final step is probably the removal of the brain cell.
Right.
In this Pincer era, when you've got a shopping basket of attributes and you can buzz around while you're building a nursery and choose all these attributes, what role is there for parenting in that? Once you've chosen all these attributes,
look, it's a massive role because, as I said, you know, half of who we are. Well, maybe it's also a part of our choices, but half of it is our social environment, our parenting. So you're still going to have a massive influence. You can severely limit a child's opportunities by indoctrinating the child, abusing the child, failing to enable that child to flourish. So parenting is incredibly important, but it's also important to recognise that the genes that we start life with are also important. And either side, if you just focus on the one, you're missing the other half of the picture.
Isn't Pincer a bit of a false promise? I mean, I would sue Pincer if I chose all these attributes and then my kid turned out a totally different way, because I'm no longer predisposed to look at having a child as a kind of you get what you get and you don't get upset sort of experience. Once you introduce all these controls, then you create an expectation in parents that their kid's going to turn out a certain way. And as we know, children are...
Yeah, well, I mean, that's called hyper-parenting, and that's already a problem. And people, you know, want their child to be a basketball superstar or a concert pianist. Lang Lang, you know, was forced to do hours of piano practice, and his father told him to commit suicide when he didn't get into the Chinese conservatory. So there is already hyper-parenting without any kind of genetic selection or modification. That's a real problem. But again, the way to address that is to address bad parenting. It's not to restrict kind of choices that can give the child either a better chance of being happy or more opportunities in life.
Well, I'm going to genetically select my kids to be lawyers so that they can handle this wave of litigation.
Pincer has taken us from choosing our baby's eye colour to superhuman athletes. On the whole, do you think we are ready for Pincer technology?
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
Meredith, do you think we're ready to handle that responsibility?
Not until we start discussing things like regulation, governance of it.
You can do that later.
Money, all of that kind of thing. No, I think it's too dangerous a territory at the moment.
Julian, you've done a lot to convince us of the benefits of gene editing, but are we ready for it?
Yeah, no, well, I don't think we're ready for it because we need to have, you know, a much more fulsome discussion about what is a good life for ourselves and our children, and what are the limits that we can pose in terms of risk to other people. And we've sort of muddled our way through, and we don't want to have a kind of values discourse. We don't want to talk about what the good life is and what sorts of choices are going to make that child's opportunities better and which ones aren't. So we sort of leave it to the market, but this is something that the market and capitalism isn't going to solve.
Annabelle, do you think we're ready?
I don't think we are. I don't think we are at all. I think that the technology, I mean, I'm spooked by Pincer, but the technology is sort of racing ahead to put us in a position to choose things that I don't know if we're able to consider as fully as we should be able to. But I worry about who's making these decisions about what's good and what's bad, what's comfortable and what's uncomfortable. If we worked to make a world that was where it was more comfortable to be different, then that would be a better way around this, I reckon.
I agree wholeheartedly, because PINS is not going to eradicate. So disabilities occur, when we're adults due to a range of reasons. People lose limbs in car accidents. I've got a spinal cord injury, but I wasn't born with a spinal cord injury. So disability is always going to, it's still going to be out there.
What about for the super athletics, though? You got excited about that.
I'm still excited about that, I'm not going to lie. Yeah.
But you wanted to use the technology if you were going to have a child, so I think that...
I honestly, I say a lot of things, and...
Well, in order to design the perfect children, we'd need to begin with the perfect parents. And anyone who's ever had to diffuse a meltdown in a supermarket using nothing but a Peppa Pig yoghurt squeezy knows there's no such thing. And maybe one of the best parts of parenting is not choosing what you love, but loving what you get. Let's see how it all worked out.
Forget GM food, it's now GM footy. Children's AFL competitions will now be split into GM and organic leagues.
Designed by his comedian father Nazim, Nazim Hussain Jr. has become the first Australian cricket captain to open the batting and bowling in all forms of the game. In other news, Cricket Australia has outlawed genetically modified players who have sandpaper for hands.
The Gene Editing Party wants to breed smarter Australian politicians. Voters' only question, how soon can you start?
Would you please thank our panel, Julian Savulescu, Meredith Young and Nazim Hussain, and of course, Annabelle Crabb. Join us next week for more news as it breaks before it's even broken. Good night.
Coming up in the near future, when the taps are dry and Australia runs out of water, will we turn on each other?
We've had 100 years of people pinching our water, and so we're pretty cranky about it.
All right, I was by the river one day and I put in my bucket and had a big gulp, Jay, but please don't put me in prison for that.
Next week, former Premier Jay Weatherall, cattle farmer Sue McCluskey and Denise Scott join the panel to discuss what if we ran out of our most precious resource.